giving me, yeah, we're going. Got it.
Yeah, yes, and I'll put it on my YouTube channel too. I'll throw it through my editing stuff too. So I'll put it subtitles with it and everything for us. I'll throw it through my That was feedback.
I know, that's why I just closed it down. But we are live. We're streaming live. So it's a funny trick. Every time I go live on the Facebook group, hi everybody, just talking about our tech difficulties. Then the Facebook page opens and then I'm getting this, and I don't know what to do. So I immediately just close it down. And yeah, so then I watch it on my phone for comments.
And then hope there's people there.
Yeah, right. And like, let's see here. So, and I see us. Yep. We're there. We already got likes. People already joining in. Brian said, yo, so looking forward to this. So super happy.
Yeah. So Jack, Lena has quite a following, quite a show. I've recently joined her. And so it's just a nice group of people that she's got accumulated, which is really good, as you're saying, for book sales, because publishers love when you bring your own show with you because it makes their job a lot easier.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And I'm going to be working my tail off for my upcoming book. As you can see, look, it's right above my head.
Nice.
It's blue and yellow. Can you see it?
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A change from the red and black and white. And now we're going to blue and yellow. But yeah, we'll see if it catches people's eyes on the shelf, especially like in the airport.
That's a good feeling when you go through the airport, you see your book in the bookstore.
Well, I don't know that feeling yet, but I'm hoping I do one day. I want to just walk by and be like, oh, look at that.
Good
well,
stuff.
what I was saying, Jack, earlier about elicitation, the funny thing, and hi, everybody, welcome. We're going to do introductions here in a second. And we're going to tie in how I know this guy over here. When I first learned elicitation, I hated it. I was like, it's creepy. It's weird. I can't do it. I'm not good at it. I'm not going to touch it. I got interrogation. That's all I need. And how ignorant of a statement that was.
Well, it's not elicitation. It's truth detecting.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
That's why I love Jack. That was the best turn of phrase I've ever had in my entire life. I thought Jack's like switch was really, really crafty. And then when he came up with the truth detector, I was like, all right, he did it again. You are just a master of titles.
Well, I had a lot of help with that, though.
I love it. All right. Well, welcome.
Out of everything.
Yeah. Well, you have to, right? You have to. We don't want to be creepy. We want to be good. And we share all this information for the good. Anyway, welcome everybody to our show tonight. Super, super excited. We are sending prayers to Gavin because he recovered from a surgery. I believe he is out right now. He made it through the surgery fine. He's doing good. So we're sending you good, positive vibes, heal. We will have Jack on again. Jack, he was very upset that he couldn't be here with you. He's like, really? The one day I have surgery? I'm like, oh, sorry. So you'll have to just come back. And you guys, I'm going to be monitoring comments. So I'll be watching on my phone. But tonight we have two amazing people, Rob and Dreeke, I guess below me on my screen, but you guys have seen him before. He's one of our trust agents, but we also have the pleasure of having Jack Schafer here. And I'm going to turn it over to Jack to introduce himself. Most of you, though, in this group who are, by the way, Jack, this group is all people interested in all things human behavior. So they eat it up and we have good discussion about it. And so your books and your background have been tossed around and referenced and mentioned in a lot of posts already. Unbeknownst to you, but that's okay. So now you guys get to see him in the flesh and hear from him tonight. And we are going to be talking about truth detection and elicitation, and how elicitation is such a masterful conversational skill set in order to detect the truth. Because if you guys don't know already, it's this most unassuming conversational technique that relaxes people, that creates a safe environment, as I call it, and really encourages people to open up and want, keyword there, want to be truthful and honest. So before I go any further, and I'm just going to stop talking for a minute, Jack, I would love for you to introduce yourself to the tribe and tell us all about your super cool stuff.
Yeah, hi. Currently, I'm a professor at Western Illinois University teaching law enforcement. I've been there for 11 years. Prior to that, I was working with Lena in the Phoenix Consulting Group. That's where I met her. And then before that, I met Robin in the behavioral analysis program, the FBI's behavioral analysis program. And my primary work in the FBI was counterintelligence. So basically, we caught spies. And then when I got on the behavioral analysis program, we all got together and studied human behavior. What is the best way to get someone to work for us from a foreign government to get them doubled back? What's the best way to get someone to confess? What's the best way to bait somebody to bring them out of the woods and into the clear so we can arrest them? And what we would do is get everything we could on the subject we're looking at. We would analyze their behavioral patterns, find weaknesses in their personality, and then we would construct strategies to take advantage of the vulnerabilities that we spotted. So that was kind of where we got the elicitation segment, because we spend a lot of time trying to get information from people without them knowing that they're revealing information that's of great value to us. And so what I did was, along with Lena and John Nolan, we studied elicitation techniques. And then I took all the stuff that I learned from my experiences, and then I brought it over to the social arena where we can use it in everyday lives. It's very effective on the job, and it's very effective off the job. It's good for negotiations. It's good for just finding the truth from people before they have a chance to lie. And that's the value in the book.
Yeah. And I tell you, it works really good for those of you who are in the dating scene, and especially with all of this online stuff, you don't know who to trust. I was just listening to my sister-in-law tell me about 3 guys that came up on, I don't know which platform it was, all 3 scam artists, and like really creepy and dangerous. And so you can use elicitation to really discover people's true intentions and what they're about. And they don't know, which is the best thing. And you said something, Jack, about uncovering information that was really critical to you. But when you're using elicitation to gather that information, the brilliant part of it is that that person has no idea how valuable the information is. And that's what's golden, I think, about it.
And the trick with elicitation is you don't ask questions.
Yeah.
Because when you ask questions, shields go up. People go, why are they asking the question? Why do they want the information? How are they going to use it? Are they going to use it against me? What should I say? What shouldn't I say? But with elicitation, what you're doing is creating an environment that predisposes people to want to tell you something. Mm-hmm. And I guess the caveat I want to say is that a lot of people think, well, this is manipulation. Well, number one, it's not manipulation. All you're doing is creating an environment where people are encouraged to talk. You're not forcing them to talk. They're just in an environment where they feel very comfortable to talk. So, and the other thing is you can't defend yourself against con men unless you know how con men operate. So con men use a lot of these same tactics. So if you know the tools and you don't want to use them to, on the offense, at least learn the tools so you can defend yourself and recognize when con men are trying to take advantage of you and get your identity and steal your identity. So it works both ways. It's an offensive tool and it's a defensive tool.
And we're going to talk more about it. But before we get into it, Robin, and I know most people know who you are here, but could you just introduce yourself and give a background? Because we do have a lot of new people coming to this group who may not know you. So tell us all about it.
Yeah, my name is Robin. I'm the former head of the group that Jack was in the FBI. Matter of fact, Jack was my first assessment for the behavioral team was with Jack, and I think it was February of 2002. Lots of fun stories. Matter of fact, Jack has always been a wordsmith. That's why I have on our screen here, words matter, because even in the very first book that Jack put together, my advanced interviewing techniques, where him and Joe Navarro both signed it, Jack back in 2002 wrote words are the building blocks of truth and justice, Jack Schafer. So always it's been words with Jack. So yeah, my background is I former Marine, so I got my Marine emblem up there, but I'm wearing my Naval Academy
Uh-oh, he froze. Jack, are you? No, you're.
Yeah, I'm good.
Robin, you're frozen. I thought it was me. He froze. As soon as he mentioned Naval Academy, he froze.
Yeah, that was it.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Oh, now he's back. You're back. You mentioned Naval Academy. And I was like, zzz.
I had this frozen look, so I said, "Uh-oh, did I just bore the hell out of everyone?"
No.
I'm hardwired too. So yeah, Naval Academy, Marine Corps, and then I came in the FBI 97, assigned to work in the New York field office, where I recruited Russian intelligence officers, GRU officers in New York at the United Nations. And my only joke is always, hey, when I came in the Bureau 97, Vladimir Putin was pretty much running the show, and he's been doing it the whole time.
Yeah.
Then I served in Norfolk, Virginia, working counterintel, then FBI headquarters. I went to our CI training center at Quantico around 2008. And that's when, so Jack and I worked numerous times, not just, we worked a good number of cases together. Matter of fact, the first time we did a case together, we have 4 positions on the team, and you kind of rotate around. You have team leader, you have briefer, you have the writer, and I got assigned writing. Writing's a horrible one. And so I was assigned to write the report up, and I sent it out to Jack, who was a team leader for that, the senior guy, the Jedi Master. And he emails me back, says, we need to have a talk. And about 4 hours later of him going line by line on how I sucked at writing, it was done. And so Jack and I had it was like Jack said, there was nothing more exhilarating than strategizing human engagements. And when I wound up taking over our team in, I think it was when the last guy that had it, Vince, retired. I took it over. I think it was 2010. I had it for a couple of years until inner gyrations of the FBI switched it up. I retired and stuff like that. So I ran it for a couple of years. And at the same time, what was really cool is Jack had just finished with you, and I didn't know you worked together at Phoenix. And so he was doing contract work for the FBI. I was in charge of putting an advanced undercover certification course. I'm an undercover certified guy, and Jack got involved with that. So him and I not only work cases together, but we got to work together. Matter of fact, I still actually, Jack, I actually swiped it from you. I still have actually your lesson plan for elicitation that you use in that course. It's upstairs in my file. Okay. It's fantastic. That's why when I actually read your book, The Truth Detector, I was like, oh, it's his lesson plan right here. So that's my background. Oh, and then I retired in 2018, and I consult and speak. I got 3 books on trust, because that's what, if you want to inspire someone to tell the truth before they have a chance to lie, it really comes down to forging trust. That's why my podcast is called Forging Trust, or Forged by Trust, because I found that is the bedrock of absolutely everything. That's what my team did. Just what Jack and I did in every engagement. And Lena, I know as an interrogator, you were actually strategizing trust. How do you inspire someone to want to forge a relationship from their perspective, to have enough trust to share the most inner details of their lives? Because we give people the most important gift that very few people do, is we validate their self-opinion, and we're curious about them without judging them. And so that's what all this comes down to. So there you go.
You know what? I love that. Curious without judging. So when I was in Gitmo, for those of you who are new to the tribe and don't really know me as well, I'm Lena Sisco, former interrogator, and I actually have ties both to the Navy and Marine Corps. I am a former naval intelligence officer, enlisted, then an intel officer, and I'm also a Marine Corps certified interrogator. So we have no Army or Air Force love, do we? We know.
And if anyone wants, it's important, go to the podcast, and I have both Lena on my podcast as well as Jack on the podcast. And if you buy my little Audible book, Jack's episode is the tag at the end of it too. So it's not all about me is the first part, and then Jack's episode with me is at the end. Not that I'm plugging myself, but if you want Death by Jack or Lena, their episodes on my show are absolutely fantastic. Their Jedi skills are in full display on both of them.
I love it. I love it. Well, I tell you what, and the most pleasurable podcast I've ever had was with you, Robin, because Robin has this knack to just dig into. You just pour right to the heart and ask this question. You're like, whoa, I wasn't prepared for that one. Like, what? Why would, huh? And it's amazing, because you just uncover all this wealth of information that most people get like here. You get right under the surface and get to the heart of the matter, which I love.
It's curious. You know, what's in,
Yes.
and I actually thought about this the other day. I recorded another podcast yesterday, and the same thing comes up, because what happens is, and this really, I think is a great segue, because then you two can really take off, because you're the masters of elicitation. When you're really listening to someone, people are sharing information that they're willing to talk about. If it doesn't come out of the mouth, then they're not, then I don't go there. But if it comes out of your mouth, well, that's fair game. Now, what's interesting is what is really fun is when you hear something, I love reversing that optic and saying, well, why did someone say that to you? What did they see? Like I did it with you, Lena. What did someone see in you that you weren't aware of? Like, why did that commander choose you as an enlisted E3 to go to the Marine Corps interrogation school? And I remember this so clearly. You said, well, it's because I was a type A. I said, no, there's a lot of type A's. What did they see in you? I love that reverse question, because it makes people reflective. And also it does a great thing for the individual. It highlights why they're awesome. And it tells you, I see your greatness, and everyone else sees it too right here. And it's a great way to build a great connection.
Did you just say I was awesome?
Of course, I say it all the time.
I think he said you were awesome.
I would that. I feel very good. I feel very proud right now. All right. Well, listen, we promised you guys a show talking about that truth detection, elicitation. I love, Robin, what you just said. Listen, it's all about trust. And even when I was an interrogator down in Gitmo, I was trying to discover this main or the secret ingredient to get these detainees to trust me enough to want to be open and honest with me. It wasn't an ingredient, guys. It's a recipe. It's a lot of stuff that goes into interacting with humans and really persuading them, not manipulating them, but persuading them to want to be open and honest and talk to you. It's rapport building. It's gaining that trust. It's forging trust. And of course, it comes with that conversational skill set. I like to call myself a word nerd, Jack. I love my words. I love to analyze words coming out of other people's mouths, but I'm also very cognizant of the words coming out of my mouth, because I want to make sure that I'm always saying exactly what I should say for that scenario, for that person, so it reaches them. So Jack, I'm going to kick the ball over to you, and let's continue this talk about elicitation.
All right, let's start from the vantage point where we've already developed rapport with the person.
All right.
Using rapport techniques, and we'll get right into elicitation.
You got it.
Let's just assume we have rapport.
I love it.
And now what you want to do now is you want to look at some human psychological tendencies that people possess. And I think the most powerful one is people have a need to correct others. Because when we correct others, we put ourselves here and we put the person we corrected down below us. So it makes us feel very good about ourselves. And it is very difficult to not correct somebody, because it's all about us. It's all about our ego. Mm-hmm. So I teach the class in school. I teach a little elicitation in my classes. And what I would do is I will put, it's a senior class. So I'll tell the student when they make a good comment, I'll say, that's a real insightful statement or observation from a sophomore. And I just taught them about correcting others. And so the poor girl is going like, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it. I know what you're up to. And I said, yeah, I just taught you this. I'm glad you spotted it. And she's like, I won't say it. So about 5 minutes later, she said, I am a senior. I said, what did you just do? She says, I couldn't help myself. I had to do it because I had to correct you. I couldn't live with it. So the elicitation technique we want to use to take advantage of that is something I refer to as the presumptive. And that is, you make a statement, whether that statement is true or false. Mm-hmm. You just make the statement. If the statement is true, the people will confirm it, say, yes, that's true. And then they will give you additional information. If the statement's false, they will say, no, no, no. And they will correct it. And they'll give you information as to why you're wrong. And the presumptive is an absolutely powerful technique to learn. And I think if you're going to learn one technique at all in elicitation, that is the presumptive. And what happens with a lot of people, they're afraid to use the technique because they think, oh, number one, you have to suspend your ego because you are now wrong. And somebody's going to tell you you're wrong. And you got to live with the fact that you're wrong. And you don't want to live with it because your psychology says, no, I'm always right. I don't want to be wrong. So you got to get over that. And when we elicit, we just make the statement and boom, they come back with the answer. And Lena knows that we used to go take our students. We have a 4-hour session in the morning and of elicitation techniques. Then we would take them to the mall. And I think you even participated on quite a few of those.
Yeah.
And we would point out, we would just assign a student a person, random person in the mall and say, go get their social security number, go get the PIN to their computer, go get their PIN to their bank account, go get their date of birth, go get all this personal info, social security numbers. And the students were able to do it within 3 to 5 minutes of meeting a perfect stranger. Using these techniques, they were able to get that information from that person. It's amazing how it works.
Can I give an example?
Yes.
I used to do the same thing, because we all taught roughly the same thing in the same area, went to the mall and did this. And so I always used to say same thing. You have to, in order to run enough and get enough information from someone to run a background check, I need a name, I need a date of birth, I need a place of birth, and I need employment. Mm-hmm. And to ask those questions of a stranger shields up. But the power of the presumptive statement is so amazing. I call them you must be's, like you must be this, you must be this. So go into a mall, and this is a very typical scenario. You go to a Barnes and Noble or anything like this. And I was literally in my suit because I had a bunch of students said, no, you can't do this. It's a stranger. How can you do this? I said, watch this. And so there's a woman at a big book bin. And I say, so sorry, ma'am. I'm obviously at work. I got to get back to work in like 30 seconds. I'm curious. I'm trying to get something special for my wife's birthday. Any recommendations? She says, oh, I don't know. I'm trying to get something for my father's birthday. I said, oh, so you must be like us. Everyone's born in the same month. Oh, no, I'm January. I said, oh, the 1st, no, the 16th. And my husband's in June. The 12th, no, the 15th. I said, so if you're going to get something for yourself, what would it be? She goes, oh, it'd be a medical book. A medical book? Oh, yeah, I'm a nurse at Mary Washington Hospital over here. I said, that's amazing. So you must be a local girl. No, I was born in Oklahoma. My father's a pastor. He moved here when I was 16. I said, thank you very much. She said, what would you recommend? And then I actually recommended some David McCullough books. But yeah, there you go. Under 30 seconds, presumptive statements, date of birth, home of record, and employment, and date of birth for everyone in the family. So and one question asked.
And you threw in a couple extra techniques. One of the techniques is word echo.
Yep.
What happens is you repeat the last word or last phrase of what people say. And like you say, oh, this, and then you just repeat what they say, and then they will give you a lot of information based on that word echo. Yep. And the other technique you used was quid pro quo. Yep. Quid pro quo means if you give me this, I'll give you that. So what Robin did, he said, oh, I was born in June. Oh, no, I was born in July. So he offers up the quid and she offers a quid pro quo. And so what he did is he daisy chained 3 techniques into one elicitation, and nobody knew that he was doing that because this is part of what I call the human baseline. Because our brains look at things that are outside the baseline and things that our brain looks for threats in the environment. And if there's threats, then we perk up and our brain takes notice. But in order to be efficient, what our brain does is if we see something in the environment that we've already judged as being non-threatening, we put that in a part of our brain that says, don't worry about that. So we don't pay attention to that. So what we're doing is operating within this human baseline where the brain has already determined it's non-threatening. So when we do that, we can daisy chain a number of elicitation techniques and nobody's going to know we're doing it because we're not outside that human baseline. Yeah, not the personal baseline, but the human baseline.
And what I also did that you couldn't see. So when I first did the approach, body was half bladed to her. So, and I was leaning away. So I gave her the space that she's looking for. So she gave me the full, I call it the nonverbal open. She gave the nonverbal open that she felt safe. And so I only came in half to match that. And I also started out what's called a time constraint. So I established a time constraint. when I stated, I'm so sorry to bother you. So validation of her time. So it makes her feel safe. And I'm about to go back to work. So this, in other words, it's not like an open-ended, I'm going to control your time. So it's empowered her with choice about how to move forward, and the whole thing is about how to make her feel safe really rapidly. So that sure nonverbals opened up. Then I started with those presumptive statements and daisy chain, like you said.
Yeah, and that time constraint thing is important, because if we put a time constraint on a deadline, people feel an urgency to finish the business, to adhere to the deadline. That's why they put expiration dates on coupons. The day after one expires, they're going to issue another bunch of coupons with the expiration date. Well, we better hurry and get this done because there's an expiration date. And when we go to a car dealer, they say, you got to make the deal tonight or it's off. There's an urgency. You leave the showroom, this deal, I can't give you this deal again. And that's nothing more than setting urgency. And I always say, if you're going to sell it to me at this price tonight, you know you're going to sell it to me at the same price tomorrow morning. Don't kid me. Don't do that. And which comes to, how do you defend yourself? It's something called name it and claim it. You see a technique being used on you, you just name it. And so with the case of the car dealer, I'll say, I know what you're up to. You're trying to set urgency. I'm not falling for it. And then you leave. So you name it and claim it. And then you protect yourself against that technique. But you got to name it consciously.
That's so good. I love that. Love that. So you made me think of a couple of things. I call it don't space invade. I have to be invited into people's space. Right. So me being a female, some things are a little different, right? And so when I'm going to bump a target, whether it's for training like Red Cell or if it's real world, I make sure I get just outside that social space, but I don't space invade until I get that acceptance, like, hey, come in. And what does that look like? They lean into me. They take a step into me. As soon as somebody does that, I'm like, okay, it's okay to close the distance now, because I don't, want to be presumptive and get close and all of a sudden have them back up. Because then I'm like, oh, now it's just another layer that I have to work through to gain their trust and create that safe environment. So I love that you do that. And I also, when I'm bumping strangers, so when I used to get hired by special forces, I did a couple of years where I would get hired as Red Cell, and I'd have to bump their students in training environment. And they were told, don't trust anyone, don't talk to anybody, don't give up any information. And here I come walking in, la da 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 da, playing the simple blonde or whatever role I was playing. And I never would go up into this restaurant and sit right beside them. That's ridiculous, right? So I'd go up just close enough that I become a blip on their radar. How do I become a blip? I get you to look at me. And as soon as I get that eye contact, you notice me in your environment. And now I'm going to make sure, like what you said, I get your brain to look at me as safe in this environment. Why? How do I do that? When in Rome, do what the Romans do. I'm doing what every other patron in that bar is doing. I'm fitting right in. I'm not standing out. Nothing I'm doing is alerting. And then as soon as I start creeping closer and closer, and then I get the invitation, and now I'm in, 40 minutes goes by. I know who you are, what you're doing, and why you're in training. Right? And these are people at a high level of training told, don't talk to people. If you don't know anybody, you don't talk to them. That's it. It's 4 days. If you can survive these 4 days without talking to a stranger, you pass. And I get them to talk to me and tell me who they are and what they do, because it goes back to creating that safe environment.
Oh, you can do it all non-verbally.
You could. Yes, you could.
We call them smile campaigns when we're recruiting intelligence.
Eyebrow flash, head tilt, the smile. And then you add a little curiosity hook. If you just put something on your coat or your blouse or your hair, and that gives somebody an excuse to come say, oh, that's interesting. Bingo, you got them. It's done. And they came to you. You didn't go to them. So they think that they're the ones that initiated the encounter, when in fact you initiated the encounter. And they feel safe because I initiated it. She didn't come after me. I went after her.
That is such a good point, because we had to build muscle memory around inspiring people to, and as I use that word inspire instead of influence, inspire, because it focuses on them, about how to inspire someone to approach us, because it was illegal for us to approach an intelligence officer. I could not walk up and initiate a contact with an intelligence officer, because as soon as so it's just like you were saying, Russian intelligence officers and the highest level ones anywhere, if they were ever approached, someone initiated contact with them, their training says that's an intelligence officer or that's someone who's related to intelligence or a co-optee of intelligence, and there is no contact. So they're the ones that have to initiate a relationship or there will be no relationship. And so in order to actually recruit someone and have a dialogue with someone, they have to initiate, which requires massive elicitation and become interesting to the other person, so they want to start that. And so having third-party references by doing smile campaigns to inspire them to want to have a conversation about things that are potentially pain points and priorities in their lives, so that gains interest. That's what the strategy sessions are all about, and that's why it's so much fun.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with us because we all like woohoo.
What strategizing good healthy human engagements?
It's amazing. I know. It's amazing.
Love a great conversation. They're the best things in the world.
Yeah, but let's break this down into regular terms. When we have a person of interest, don't we sit and strategize? Let's analyze the person from afar. Let's see what they're up to. Let's send friend signals for a while, get them used to seeing us. And then all of a sudden we're going to think, if I do this and if I do that. So you're strategizing, just like we strategize to recruit assets. Yeah. You're strategizing to recruit a person of interest. The same techniques.
Is the same. You know, Jack, that makes me remember you taught something because you used to tell a story. I'm pretty certain it was you. The relationship equation index.
Yes, personal relationship index.
What is that?
That is, agents would come to us and ask, especially Joe and I came up with this, Navarro. And they would say, what? Yeah, Joe Navarro. And they would say, how do you recruit agents? So we sat down, had a couple beers at a hotel, I remember, and we came up with the 4 fundamental elements of all personal relationships and put it into an algebraic formula. It's proximity, or the personal relationship index equals proximity times the function of frequency plus duration times intensity.
That's the one. Okay.
All relationship.
What? I stole it. It's in one of my books too.
I hope there's a footnote, Robin.
There is. And actually, I use a different word. I called it relationship accelerators is what I call it.
Oh, okay. That's not too close, is it? All right.
That's why when it's funny, Jack, when I was reading your book, and I'm sidetracking everyone. When I was reading the Truth Detector and going through, I was like, I guess I didn't come up with that.
No, Joe Navarro and I came up with that.
And I remember it.
Yeah, somebody says I thought I was really original on. Some of them, yeah, some of them not so much.
Like you hear a good conversation. Where did I? Oh, that's mine. Clearly, it was my idea. Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, Jack, your ears must burn all the time because when I'm training, I reference you in a couple of things. One is about doing things to make ourselves feel good. It's a funny story. I may share it here, I may not. And the other one is this, I called it the relationship index because I couldn't remember it. And I forgot intensity. I got the proximity, duration, and frequency, but I was like, there's something else I can't remember. Intensity. Thank you for clearing that up.
Great one. So that's what I love doing during a podcast is when I do that reverse optic and people are sharing like your story about your grandmother and the woo-woo and the spoonfuls of castor oil. That's intensity. That's a deep conversation just beyond, having to talk about the weather.
But the thing about intensity is you can measure proximity, either they're there or they're not.
Yep.
You can measure frequency quantitatively, right? Yep. But how do you measure intensity?
Yeah,
that's the key. So Joe Navarro and I sat down and said, what are the nonverbal cues that we can remotely view people and say what intensity that relationship is? And we set up, I can't remember now, but there's probably 15 different nonverbal cues. And the number one on the list is mutual gaze.
Wow.
People look at other people if they like other people. And the interesting thing about mutual gaze is when we look into somebody's eyes, we release a hormone called oxytocin. And that's a bonding hormone. So people bond when they look. So you ever see two lovers and they're just sitting staring into one another's eyes? They're releasing oxytocin. Each of them is releasing oxytocin, and that develops that bond between people. And if you don't believe me, all you dog lovers out there, when you go home, what does the dog do? Sometimes, has a dog ever come up to you? I have a couple dogs, and they come up, tilt their head, and they look like they're looking deep into my soul, right? And I'm looking back at them, deep into their souls. And what's going on? We're releasing oxytocin. So that's how dogs get their bonding with the owner. Mm-hmm. And they need that because they need food, they need treats, they need to exercise, they need attention. So the dogs are smart. It's interesting, cats don't do that. No. And that's why cats are seen as what? Independent. They don't need people because there's no bond there between the owner and the pet.
I will say this though, and I was watching a video on this and I can't remember, it came up in a reel or something. The way to bond with the cat, all you cat lovers out there, I have 3 of them, is you do the slow blink.
Oh, is that it?
Soon as you do the slow blink and that cat does one back, you got it. It was on, it's Netflix, like some science thing, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a show on cats. And if you do that slow blink and they blink back, you've bonded with a cat.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So that's, well, not many people know that though.
I know, right?
I didn't know that either.
And a dog.
I do it all the time. I slow blink and I talk in a really high pitchy, squeaky voice. And they're like,
yeah, it's like the dog, but the dog actually approaches you and will sit there and just stare at you. So they're initiating the action. That's why I think we recognize it more in dogs than cats, because I didn't know.
Cats will not approach you. They'll be like, oh, cute, give me my food.
Yeah. Anyway, so I just mentioned that because I don't want people to trust what I'm saying is true. I want them to go out and make a presumptive statement. Yes. Do a quid pro quo. And another technique you can use is called bracketing. Mm-hmm. You want to find out how much somebody makes? You say, oh, you work for such and such. Well, geez, you must be making like 125,000. And they're going like, well, no, not that much. Well, it's lower. Yeah. So then you say, oh, maybe about 70, 75. And they go, well, it's in the neighborhood. And then you make a presumptive 73. And they'll either say yes or no. So you can find out how much they make. It's not difficult.
I did this, Jack. I have to share this story with you. I think I've shared it before in one of our lives. And Robin, you may remember it, about the drummer. Do you guys remember that story? I was at a concert, Jack, and my husband and I love live music. This was before we moved to Florida. So we're at the live music and there's no place to sit. It's outside. And these 2 gentlemen are sitting at a really big picnic table and they're like, hey, come on over, sit with us. So like, great. So my husband starts talking to one who's clearly by looks a rocker. He's got the rocker t-shirt on. He's got all the jewelry, everything, right? He gets to telling us that he has a magazine and it's a musician magazine. So at this point, my husband kind of takes off, talks to him, and I tune him out and I'm talking to Bob, the insurance guy. And Bob's just kind of, good old Bob. He's funny, he's friendly, he's joking around. Well, out of the blue, he leans in and he says, yeah. He goes, Jeff over there. And this is when Aerosmith's drummer died and they were looking for a new drummer. And he's like, Jeff over there, he knows who the new drummer is for Aerosmith. And I was like, oh, target challenge. Here we go. I'm going to find out. And I said, Bob, if that guy came up and bit me on the nose, I wouldn't even know who it was. And he goes, yeah, but I'm not supposed to say anything. It's really super secret. I'm like, oh, challenge is really on now. So I tried a couple more attempts and I just hit the yellow light, right? And I didn't want to make Bob feel uncomfortable. So I still hear Jeff and my husband talking about the magazine and how there's a drummer. Now, this is a little bit of luck and a little bit of thinking on my feet. So all I do is I pivot and I said to Jeff, I interrupt the conversation. I said, oh, you got Aerosmith's new drummer on your cover, don't you? And he was just like,
yeah, that would be yes.
Right? He grabs, he's like,
that's good.
How did you know? I'm like, well, I didn't, but I do now. And he takes my arm, he puts it on his arm. He had short sleeves this summer, puts it on his arm. He's like, you just gave me goosebumps. How did you know? And before I could even say anything, he grabs his cell phone. He's like, look, I'm texting with him right now. So not only have I confirmed to this guy is I've got his personal cell phone. And I'm like, yep, Roger, see everything, got the number, all that. And it was just because I just did a presumptive statement. And and that's that thing going back to the psychology. People feel compelled to either agree with you, disagree with you, or correct you, right? It's this compelled nature we have in a conversation. And this is why elicitation is so brilliant, because it really focuses on the psychology that makes it work.
You know, another technique I like, what I do is there's 16 or 20 techniques you can use. What you want to do is I listed them all, and I only use the ones that I really like. And I ask people, just pick the ones you like and practice. The other one I like is when you reference a third party. I read it on the internet that your company's having difficulty making supply chain problems. So we won't get on-time deliveries. So you're combining two things. I read it on the internet and a presumptive. So now that person is compelled to say, well, no, we've had problems and we're getting over the problems. So but if you have problems and you're getting over problems, it means you have problems. So they're telling you, yes, we have supply chain problems. So if you have an on-time delivery that you need, are you going to want to use them or somebody else maybe? Yeah. So through elicitation, daisy chaining these techniques, you can get information.
I love that.
And you know, I'll share with you a secret now. It's only published in several books, and but it's a secret.
But it's a secret. All right.
And why do I say that? Because a secret means people want to hear it. So,
exactly. I knew what you were up to. I was like, I know where he's going. I know, Jack.
Because you're special. Because you're awesome, right? And Robin told me so.
That's because I'm awesome. I forgot.
It's something called the well technique. I don't know, Robin, you're probably familiar with it, right? The well technique.
I'm not.
So if you ask somebody a yes or no question, this is a way to test people's veracity without them knowing that you're testing their veracity. Okay. So if I ask you a yes or no question and you answer with your first word out of your mouth is well, it means you are going to give me an answer I'm not expecting. That seems a little complicated, but we'll use an example here. I tell my kid, go into your bedroom and do your homework. Nothing but shenanigans going on in there, right? No homework going on. He comes out an hour later and you say, Junior, did you do your homework? And he says, well, I said, get back in there and do it. How'd you know I didn't do it? I'm in the FBI. I know these things. Get back there and do it. But how did I know? When I come out and ask him that yes or no question, what answer does he think I'm expecting he'll tell me? Yes, Dad, I did my homework. If he says, well, it's anything but yes. Anything but yes is no. Mm-hmm. So if I'll say, boss, am I getting a raise this year? Well, the answer is no, you're not getting a raise. Don't run up the credit cards. Yeah. You can use that multiple times.
I did something different with my kids growing up. It was really funny. I used that whole FBI thing for them lying and dad's behavior guy.
You guys
and what I did was my son's a Marine too, if y'all don't know, Lena does, but he's at Quantico. He's a Marine aviator. He's about to go down to flight school. But anyway, he's here at Quantico, just 20 miles to He's home for the weekend. And I used to do this to him all the time. I said, Kevin, I'm really good at telling if you're lying, but I can tell if you stick out your tongue. And he goes, so anytime I saw what was going on, I said, all right, really? I'm going to find out the truth. Stick out your tongue. And then if they went like this, I was like, all right, we know where we're at.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
It was pretty bad.
So that's another elicitation technique. And I use it. It's very, very reliable and it's easy to use. It's easy to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just try it. That's all I ask people. Don't trust me. Try it.
I call well and so the setup words, right? Because it sets you up for heavy content. It could be a lie. It could be that they know what you're about to say. They are not going to like. And then I, give the example. So you come home and your significant other greets you at the door with a martini and says, so, it ain't going to be good, right? No. It's just that it's like, oh God, here it comes. And then when you do that yes or no question, which I love asking yes or no questions. I have, in my interview interrogation courses, I have 4 lie exposing questions that I've come up with that I teach people, and I sprinkle them through the middle of the interview and at the end. 3 of those 4 yes and no questions, because I'm checking to see if they're set up words, if you're going to give me a straight yes and no, if you're going to embellish the yes and no, if you're going to avoid the yes and no altogether, and if you give me a yes and no, are you congruent with your body language? So it just gives me a way to check for all that stuff, and I do them sort of fast. And then I'm like, okay, it gives me kind of a gut feeling whether or not, you know, what avenues to go to, if I trust you, and then I wrap up the interview with that. But yeah, set up words so and well.
An important thing to, I think, remember during this too, what people are generally doing, especially if they're looking, especially after listening to us right now, they're waiting for that well word, or they're waiting for the no or yes. Mm-hmm. Our brains automatically start thinking in terms of what I'm going to say next to try to defeat you. But the key is no. Listen, and because when someone doesn't give you that direct answer, now's the time to flush everything out of your mind about what it is you want to say, because they're about to give you lots of content you need to explore. So stop thinking about what you're going to say, because you're going to miss everything they're saying, because that's what we want to do. We want to think, oh, I'm going to go on offense. No. You need to really pay attention now, because they're about to give you a ton of content to explore, and start weaving around and reverse those optics. There's lots of ways to do it, but really that's when you really need to pay attention if someone's not giving you a direct answer, because they're going to give you a lot of things to work with, because as we know, people are generally doing all they can to avoid lying.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're paying attention to the things they're saying, they're not generally lying about what they're saying. They're just not answering the question you want them to. So you can go all over the place as you're trying to explore what's at the root of what they're saying. So it's a good show when people are doing that.
And I love that you said explore, because, you know, I use elicitation when I'm in that dicey part of an interview or a conversation where I know I'm being taken for a ride and I have to explore and get to the topic. I use elicitation because it's unassuming, because they don't know what I'm after. In my head, I've got the daisy chain link, right? I'm going to go to this topic, bridge it to this one, bridge it to this, and go to here. I'm not going to ask questions. So it's going to maintain this very calm, relaxed atmosphere. I'm unassuming. They don't know what I'm after. I may even do like a little bit of a parallel where I'm talking about the pertinent topic using elicitation, and then a non-pertinent, and the pertinent and a non-pertinent at the same time, just to keep you kind of off kilter. So you're not focusing too much on where I'm going, right? To get
another good part of that too, Lena, what you said is your ability when you're doing this to maintain a lot of flexibility of where you're going, because, okay, so we have an objective of things that we're looking for, but if you're really paying attention to what they're saying, they might illuminate you to areas that you never even thought of you need to go. Matter of fact, as soon as we bring an intelligence officer on board that we recruit, we always have an agenda of things we think we know we need to know. The first question we ask is typically, what do you think I need to know?
Yeah.
Because they're generally a lot more aware of what they're doing to us than we are. And so have an agenda of the destination you're walking to, with a lot of flexibility in how to get there, because people are going to tell you a lot of things you were never expecting to hear, but you're only going to hear it if you're really listening to what they're saying without trying to force it where you want to go. Again, suspend their ego.
Well, I'll tell you a quick funny story about Russian intelligence. This guy worked up at the rocket lab at Edwards Air Force Base, and we got wind that he was working, that something was funny about the guy. So we had to go up and interview him. And I threw out the presumptive. And we were talking, getting real friendly, and he was real nice, and we were cozy together, and good rapport. And then I just asked him, so when were you recruited by the KGB? And he goes, this spring of '92. I went, what?
Aha!
What did you just say?
My God.
No, but the key is, it's just, you just gloss right through it. Yeah. Because if you just alert to let them know that, oh, that's a big deal, then they're going to shut right up. But you just say, all right, so what was that experience like for you?
That's what I said. I said, well, how did that happen?
Right.
I was taken aback.
There.
So he told me this story, how they recruited him and they wanted him to come to the United States. That's when the wall came down and they were flooding us with scientists, and they wanted him to find a job in the classified,
And you know what a great question is too, to find out a pain point? It's like, what kind of things did they promise you that they fell through on?
Oh, yeah.
Because now you're going to discover pain points, and you're going to because then you can start saying, I'm the lever that can actually solve that pain point, and look how they failed you. Is that something you might want to, bring back to them to say, hey, what can we do about that? So there's lots of, again, reversing optics is so much fun.
But doesn't that work? Doesn't that work with negotiations? I mean, we'll take it from our field experience down to normal. When you negotiate things, it's the same thing, isn't it, Rob?
Yep,
you're doing the same exact thing that you did. So you can use these same techniques when you're negotiating anything.
Identifying pain points and offering resources to solve them. That's all we're doing all the time.
Yep. And that's what we do when we negotiate. You need something, I have something you want. You have something I need, you have the money. So let's negotiate. Let's find that pain point. If it's supply chain issue, if it's I don't have the money, you need terms changed, you need, what are your obstacles? That's all we're doing when we buy a car. Isn't that the same thing? We don't want to pay $70,000 for that car. We want to pay 60. So now we have to find the pain points. Who has more power in that relationship?
Right.
Yeah. I train a lot of sales now, Jack, and I train them in elicitation to elicit the pain points in order to find how to motivate that person or persuade them to buy.
Yes. Right. And that's why I just want to keep connecting it to everybody can use this. You don't have to be an counterintelligence officer with the FBI or military intelligence. You can use these techniques every day in your life.
Yeah. As we are winding down on the hour, I'd love to find out, because some people, and I know in my experience, Robin and Jack, when I've taught elicitation, they're like, and even what I told you, I hated it when I first learned it, until all of a sudden that light bulb comes on. You're like, oh, it's just the most brilliant thing out there. But what do you think the biggest challenges when people are learning it? Because you mentioned quite a few techniques, Jack, and there's so many, and how we can daisy chain them. And all of a sudden we're starting to use them all together, and we're unconsciously using them all together. But I think when people are just getting started and learning elicitation, and if they read your books, what do you think the biggest challenge is that people have when they are learning it?
Confidence in doing it. Because what happens when we do something, we automatically think the other person knows what we're doing. Have you ever lied to somebody and thought, well, that person sees right through my lie? They don't. It's called what we call the spotlight effect. So that's the biggest thing we teach the intelligence officer, when we were working, that you have to turn the spotlight effect down. Don't be so hypersensitive. They don't know what you're doing. We can prove they don't know what you're doing. So you need confidence to actually just get out there and do it. And once you do it 3 or 4 times, like those students, 4 hours in a mall, they come back walking 6 feet off the ground, going like, my gosh, I have new powers. Yeah. And that gives them the confidence to what? To go out and use the tools more and more. So the biggest thing is, I guess, an analogy I would use is you got to jump into the pool.
Oh my God. I'd say
you just got to jump in the pool, get wet, and get it done with.
I say jump off the diving board.
Yeah, same thing. Jump off the diving board.
Don't stand there going, oh, it's what if, just go, just jump without thinking.
And the beauty of it is, if you make a mistake, nobody knows you made a mistake except you, because nobody knows what you're doing.
So we have, there's a couple questions saying, the biggest challenge is overcoming your desire to wanting to just do it all the time. Yes, that's somebody I know where he's addicted now. Like literally, he's in it to addiction. He's like, I just found out this last night. I found this. I'm like, okay, but he loves it. But if people, if they're reading books and they do want to experiment a little, what's their first go-to? Where should they start experimenting with elicitation?
I would go to the grocery store, stand in line at the checkout. Yeah. And then I would try to elicit the person's date of birth that's in front of me.
Wow. Okay.
It's easy.
All right.
You can do it within seconds.
So we have a thing.
Tell our viewers how.
Here's an easy one you can do. Okay. It's called June Baby. June Baby, you say? Yes, June Baby. See, curiosity just spikes right? So I've literally had students do this, and I've done it where you're standing on a checkout line and you just say, hey, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I'm kind of on a roll. I'm really good at guessing dates of birth. I'm looking at you and thinking, you're a June baby? And they'll give you a weird look and say, no, July. Oh, the 4th. No, the 16th. Bam, got it.
And the technique, I always look in the basket. And if there's diapers and Pampers and the big pull-up thing, so they got 3 kids. So I say, wow, those kids must keep you pretty busy. Well, yeah, I got 3 kids. I said, wow, you don't look old enough to be the mother of 3. And so then they give you the age. And then you say, oh, you still look happy. So you must be married for under 7 years, because after 7 years, things start falling apart. So, well, you have 4 years, and then you add, subtract, multiply, divide.
Bracketing, I love it. I love it.
And the 4th of July thing did come up in that one of the elicitations. I said, oh, so you must be like a June bride. She says, no, July. I was trying to get a wedding date, because that's what she used for her pin, her wedding anniversary. So I said, oh, June. She said, no, July. I said, oh, so there must have been real fireworks on your wedding.
Oh, my God.
And she says, no, it was a day off. It was the 5th. Oh. I went like, yes, thank you. Got it.
I did. I used to take my students. First, let me give a shout out to James Pyle. I'm but a stepchild in this family, but proud to be sitting at the table. Jim, just don't speak too soon, because you're going to be right here with us. Yeah,
I like Alicia goes, I'm never going to Illinois.
But so Jim and I all taught together at Phoenix.
Yeah, but he stayed at the kiddie table.
All right. So anyway, my story. So I would take my students and I'd pair them up in teams. And for lunch, it 2 hours, one, get lunch or whatever, and then go to get a confidence target. And they would elicit 8 bits of information. 4, they had to. And if they wanted to challenge themselves, and I taught them 10 techniques, I think at that time, they could go for the 8. So 2, I was with, my teams were off. 1 student didn't have anybody. So I went with them. I'm like, listen, I'll sit with you, but you're going to do all the work. I'm just going to sit with you. And we went to Wild Buffalo Wings, or what was that? The chicken wing place. I don't know what it is. They're sitting at the bar. That's it. Buffalo Wildlands. We're sitting at the bar. It's dead, luckily. So perfect target, confidence target. Bartender's nobody to talk to. He's this young guy, and he's got everything: the high school sport, the mascot, what he did, the girlfriend's first name, how much he paid for his first car, just random stuff I had them get. All he was missing was his last name and his nickname. So we knew that he ran track and he was a track star. So we had to get back. And so the bartender went around the back of him, and I told the student, like, listen, we got to hurry up. We got to get back to class for the debrief. I said, so hurry up and get that last name and nickname. He's like, I'm trying, but I can't. I'm like, you got the hardest stuff. This should be a breeze. So he comes out, he's trying, doesn't get it. So finally I said, John, they must have called you Roadrunner in high school because how fast you were in track. He's like, oh no, my last name's Trumpetto. They called me Tornado. And I looked at the student. I'm like, we're done. We got all 8. Let's go. And he was just like, right. It's thinking on your feet, using the information that you have. And even if you haven't had a conversation, just what you said, Jack, looking at them, profile them, use some information to be able to use inside your provocative statement that makes sense, that Robin gains their curiosity and gets them to share information.
Paying attention. That's all it takes. So I'd say that's, you're talking about some of the challenges starting this out.
Yes.
I think one of the greatest challenges is people tend to try to memorize scripts of what you're going to say. Yeah. You got to really pay attention to what they're saying, have an understanding and a theme of understanding what the techniques are, and be ready to deploy when you're paying attention and they present you the opportunity to do that. But you can only do that when you're really listening to them, because if you go in with a script and you say something that's completely inappropriate at the wrong time, you're going to really creep people out, and then you're going to fail.
Yeah.
Well, no failures because you learn. But again, don't overdo it. Don't try to do 10 daisy chains of 5 things. No, pick one technique at a time. Give it a shot. Try it on for size. See how it fits you. I'm a presumptive statement guy. That is my go-to for everything. I love it. It's the most beautiful thing in the world because it requires your own ego suspension, which is always a great task in life to have anyway. And it applies to the egos of other people. And so I just love that one. Again, that fits me well, but don't overdo it and literally listen to everything coming out of their mouths. They'll tell you everything.
One other question before we start to wind this down. Perry says, to what degree is it helpful to have a wide social presence when engaging in elicitation exercises? What is helpful to notice, to regulate, monitor, or adjust presence within that social environment? I guess, to help with the effectiveness of elicitation? Any ideas?
I say make everyone, so it's got to be individual. So the first thing, so it depends. So if you have, I love large groups, because if you actually throw out what I call balloon statements, the people willing to engage are going to respond to a balloon statement first. So you kind of zero in on them. If you're looking to try to get this one person to engage and they're not engaging, the good thing is to have a conversation with the person next to them and have them rope them into the conversation. But the big thing I'm trying to do is just, and this is individual, look at everyone and assess them non-verbally. Who is feeling unsafe? Because really the whole point of all this for elicitation to work and forge trust is people have to feel safe about you. And so really look at the effect you're having on everyone, whether a group at large or a group of individuals. Really pay attention to your effect on them to see if you're causing them to feel safe or unsafe by what you're doing and saying.
And the biggest thing I think you can key on nonverbally is that lean in. People distance themselves from things they don't like. They lean in towards the things they like. If you see people start distancing or leaning backwards a little bit, it might not be a good idea to continue on that topic.
Yep.
Yeah,
Safe.
I like that. Gosh, we're talking about so much. I love this. All right, listeners, our readers, our listeners, our watchers, our viewers. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I cannot believe an hour has gone by already. Literally, we could talk for days on this topic. So obviously, Jack, you just have to come back. I'm just saying. Okay. And we talked about elicitation. We talked about the psychology behind why it works. There's more to it, though. There's so much more. Jack introduced you to a couple of techniques. We've given you stories and examples. We've told you the most important thing when you feel comfortable learning and practicing elicitation is just be confident. And here's another one. Be patient. Don't rush yourself. Let the conversation happen. It's okay to stop, pause, think about what you're going to say before you say it. Really actively listen to the other person. It's not a race. You're not in a race. It's a conversation. Enjoy it. Be patient. And, just take a little bit at a time. Challenge yourself to that Goldilocks effect, as James Clear says in Atomic Habits. Challenge yourself just enough that you still stay motivated and want to do this, and you're getting that good return. I'm going to kick it over to both you guys for any last parting words on this. And then also, please tell our viewers where they can find you and all your good info.
Well, I'm available. If you want to see a lot of the techniques, I write for Psychology Today magazine. And on that blog, there's a lot of blogs with nonverbal, verbal behaviors and a whole array of truth detection and deception detection techniques. Or you can buy a book called The Truth Detector. That one's available anywhere. And you can buy that one. And those are two basic. And if you want to email me, my email's out there. It's jackschafer500@yahoo.com. Feel free to, thank you, Robin. Feel free to email me, and I answer all my emails. So feel free to email me.
Nice. That's very special. Cool. Robin, Jack, any parting words on the topic that we talked about?
Have fun doing this.
Yeah, I like that.
That's all I can do is say, learn the techniques, practice, and have fun. And just be amazed at the power you're going to have to find out whether people are telling you the truth or not.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, for me, everything is at peopleformula.com, all one word, peopleformula.com. And my podcast, Forged by Trust, where Jack's on, Lena's on, and a lot of other amazing people. Matter of fact, Ken DeCleva is coming out on Monday. He was a CIA psychiatrist and State Department psychiatrist. He has conducted thousands of interviews, and he is a great connector. Matter of fact, we start out by analyzing the Russian ambassador to the UK in a YouTube video that he did with the BBC. And so it's a fascinating one coming up on Monday. So be tuned into that. But I actually have a free class as well, the four keys to communication. So it's a free class. Everyone go onto my website and check that out. And my books, it's not all about me, the Code of Trust and sizing people up, all the same stuff. We're all saying the same things. And my parting stuff is everything that Lena and Jack have already said, and just know your happiness. And if your happiness is a great conversation, which mine is, just strategize how to have a great conversation by making it about others.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, thank you guys. And you know where to find me. You can find me here, thecongruencygroup.com or sectorintelligence.com as well. It's Sector Intel with 2 L's.com, LinkedIn, all the social media. Thank you so much for tuning in. Jack, oh my God, such a good, I'm so happy to see you again, first off. So this has been amazing. And man, oh man, could we have conversations. Robin, obviously, always a pleasure. Thank you guys so much for being here. This is going to continue. And is it okay that we put this on YouTube as well, Jack?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think what we'll do is, I don't know if I have replays here in the Facebook group, but Gavin, our missing co-host who's out of surgery today. Gav, hope you're doing awesome. He has a YouTube channel, so we usually put these up here so people can watch them.
And I'm going to try to put on mine as well, the Forged by Trust.
Oh,
channel
yes.
as well.
Yeah.
Because we just tagging as large of audience as we can, but because you all are part of Lena's amazing group, you get first dibs on everything.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. No, awesome. All right. Well, with that, you guys, again, thank you so much. I'm going to poke through some of your comments if you had questions that we didn't get to. We're going to try to answer some. And with that, we'll see you next week. I think we'll be live on YouTube next week, I believe. But stand by. I'll be posting because we don't know. We never know.
Trust agents, we figure it out weekly as we go.
It's Monday, it's Tuesday. It's like, oh, Wednesday. We probably should.
Jack, thanks so much for your quick response as well when you reached out for you. And thank you. And everyone, just so you know, Jack rearranged some travel plans today. When I gave him a call last night, last minute, and said, hey, you want to have some fun with us, Jack? And he's like, I got to make a drive. And then he said, nah, I canceled it just for you all. So
I'm so happy. Thank you. Well, I know I'm super appreciative, and I know everybody else is. All right, guys. Well, with that, you always know, be safe, and we will see you next time. And with that, I'm going to stop the live stream and take care.